Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Intel Extreme Masters San Jose. My name is Maros, and we are here on the B stream for Intel Extreme Masters, covering all of the elimination games from Stage 2, the group stages. And my goodness, are the matches tonight looking sensational. We're already lined up, good to go for the first map this evening. And it is going to be Nimbus with a sensationally cool PvZ. The one and only Evil Genius's HuK facing off against Team Liquid's Snute here in Group A of Stage 2 at Intel Extreme Masters. Everyone who's live at the venue, I hope that you are having a sensational time. As you may have noticed, I'm not currently in the stadium. I wish I could be, but casting over from England. But enough about all of that fun and a bit more about the games, as the first one is already started. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So here we have a game number 1 of this best of 3. And well, it is the loser's game, and spawning down to the lower left, we have got the blue Protoss player. Representing Evil Geniuses, it is HuK. And his opponent down to the lower right, the red Zerg, playing for Team Liquid, we have Snute. And now production is aware that the scoreboards are not quite correct yet, so that's just getting adjusted at the moment, so bear with us just while we get all of that sorted out. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty awesome PvZ, because let's face it, both of these two players are probably two of the best foreign players in the world right now, and what that means is that we're in for a treat in terms of how this game is going to go, and just really what's going to be going on here. So all in all, I'm very much looking forward to how this is going. Looks like we're going to have just a quick pause here. I'm not quite sure what the issue is going to be, but Snute seems to have a bit of a problem on his screen. But yep, looks like that's all cleared up now, so that is of course good news. We don't want either of these players having any issues, so we should just be getting going pretty soon. And there we go, things are now all started up nicely. And well, it's going to be fun to see what these two are able to do here. So in terms of openings, Nimbus, obviously you've got a base in your base, so both players may choose to be pretty greedy. You can take that quite quick. HuK has put a pylon just down here behind his main base, so isn't going to be trying to wall off, even though it is relatively easy to do that on this map. So yeah, we should be able to see that come down with probably a Nexus first. The wall off, even though it could come down, hasn't been taken at the moment, so just going to be seeing how this goes. Updated the scoreboards now and stuff, so apologies for that quickly. But yeah, as we got at the moment, spawning pool first actually coming down from Snute, whereas a Nexus first going to be coming out here from HuK. So as all of this is coming on down, it puts Snute in a good position. He's going to be able to look to apply a bit of pressure if he wants to with that slightly earlier spawning pool, although HuK should have ample time to wall off here. Obviously, thanks to the debris, he's able to get a very, very easy defendable position without too much trouble, and the gateway already coming out here for HuK off the back of it. If we take a quick little look up here at what Snute is doing, obviously his hatch is coming down. Now, the only thing which is really worth noting from this is that Snute is taking his natural hatch up in the main. You do see some Zergs choose to take it down at the third location just to get this creep spread a little bit further out earlier on, because obviously defending up this natural is relatively easy to do. In terms of scouting information, neither player going in the right direction yet. Snute unfortunately sending his Overlord up to the north, but isn't going to be able to scout out HuK quite yet, but does come on over, scouts it with this pylon, but the Overlord is also seen, so now HuK is fully aware of where his opponent is going to be. Second hatch now coming on through here from Snute, so he's going to be going up to 3 bases pretty damn quick, and that's in direct response to seeing no gateway at the front, the timing of the cybernetic score. He's going to be completely aware that his opponent went for a Nexus first opening, which is very, very viable on this map. The only thing that Snute actually needs to be just a little bit concerned about is that there is this probe just chilling about. He needs to try and spot that. There's so many places you can put pylons down that he may just want to be a little bit careful. Firstly though, do have just a little bit of fun coming on through here from the Zerglings coming on over, and yeah, they're not being able to do too much damage, just getting a good scout out, seeing how many gases there are without having to sacrifice through an Overlord. The second scouting Overlord still waiting down to the south here, just in case there was anything or any need to come in later if these Zerglings hadn't been able to see much. But just as the Zerglings leave, we've got HuK now just chucking on down that Stargate. And in these spawn positions, the Stargate's going to be really effective. And let's just face it, obviously we do have the drones a bit more exposed to this natural. There's a lot of cliff area you can utilize with either an Oracle or Phoenix. Both are very viable. Glad to see Snute, though, getting a good little peek around, checking where there could be any kind of pylon placement. He's sending the Overlord as well to check quite a few of the common locations as well. And with all of this, actually, we've got Snute getting quite a comfortable position in knowing that there's not going to be too much gateway pressure coming, at least initially. Unfortunately for him, what he hasn't seen is any sign of the Stargate. The Overlord is coming on through, so should be able to spot that quickly in the Oracle that is in production. But the Mothership Core came through first, just to see, is there any spores or anything like that coming on down? Snute, is he actually going to get the look of this? Coming on through, and yes, he does manage to check that the Oracle is in production, and as a result, Snute should now have ample time to put up a good defense. He's going to know this is coming on through, starts up Spore Crawlers, and this should minimize any damage that's taken. But let's face it, HuK is going to be able to do at least some damage with this Oracle, because it's still a very, very high damage potential. The Mothership Core coming in just to get a little peek, see what's going on, weaken up a couple of these drones, but all in all, with a Time Warp as well, that's actually going to maximize the amount of damage the Oracle is able to achieve. The Mothership Core actually soaking up some of the shots from that Spore Crawler, and as a result, this Oracle racking up 6 drone kills with the Mothership Core as well, so that was very, very effective. Unfortunately, a Queen in a great position here for Snute, able to get the snipe down on that Oracle and get just a little bit of bonus damage done. Nice work done there by Snute in really deflecting as much of that damage as possible, but still 6 workers killed. If we look at how that takes the Harvester's count, it is now 48 to 44. Snute up on the 3 bases, HuK still on the 2, but with additional injects coming on down, with a lot of drones going to be in production shortly, obviously Snute's going to be able to really ramp up that production nicely. A second Oracle now for HuK, trying to find some avenue to get a little bit of damage, trying to find somewhere it can pick off a couple more drones. And again, we've got this Queen for Snute, just very far forward, able to get a heck of a lot of damage. Still looking around, both gateways are coming on down, or 2 additional gateways coming on down, so going up to 3 gates, the +1 also here, but it's up in the natural base that we've got a lot more in terms of production. For the moment, Snute trying to send in an Overlord, but isn't going to be able to see the fact that there is 6 additional gates coming on down, and this is going to take actually a lot to try and stop. The 3rd base is on its way as well though, so it isn't going to be an all-in. Snute has seen the pylon get placed, and therefore if he comes on down and takes a look here, he's going to be able to confirm it, but he is still going down into the Hydralisk Den. He's keeping these Zerglings at the front to keep a good look at what's happening. The Oracle being a little bit annoying, picking off a couple of creep tumors, but that's not the end of the world. It's quickly spread forward with that additional Queen, and everything looking really, really nice. Checking around, we've got lots of chrono boosts coming on through, as well as this pylon in a good position, so we're going to have a decent amount of zealot pressure occurring at this natural base. And in terms of the standing army, Snute doesn't really have too much. 25 army supply is pretty much just those speedlings, which will find a small group of gateway units and pick them apart relatively simply, but the reinforcements coming in from the right hand side is going to be doing a lot more damage. The Oracle forced back by those Queens, but the Zealots are going to be a lot more effective. Time Warp being used to try and stop these Queens getting over too quickly. The Oracle racking up quite a few kills on these Zerglings, but not really much drone damage. Additional Zealots coming on forward, but the Hydralists are going to be popping out shortly, and that's when the damage output is going to start skyrocketing. Still, couple of transfuses, good hold here by Snute. He's walling off this area, allowing the Hydralisks to the back to maximize their damage output without getting the distance closed up, but still more Zealots coming on through. This is all off of 8 gates, remember, so it's a substantial amount of pressure that can be achieved. Drones being forced to fight here, and overall, Snute isn't taking much in the way of worker damage, but he's losing a fair few speedlings. But if we look at the overall resources lost, HuK is taking a severe more beating compared to Snute at this stage of the game. So all in all, this is getting to be a bit of a rough spot for HuK. He's taking a lot of damage, but of course behind this he does have his 3rd Nexus up, so he's going to be able to keep his economy going strong. And while he has lost those 2 Oracles, he's going to lose a couple of sentries on the Stalker here. It's not the end of the world for him with that 3rd base up, but what he may have been trying to avoid is the Swarm Hosts, because a couple of Swarm Hosts coming in can be very, very irritating, and if that does come on through, obviously HuK isn't going to be too happy about it. He doesn't like playing against Swarm Hosts, not many Protoss players do, and he's not really got the right tech for it at the moment either. His Robotic Facility and Twilight Council both are yet to be complete, and that means this Ling Hydra pressure is going to be ridiculously effective with only gateway units in order to defend it. In terms of upgrades, it's +1 on both sides, no sign of +2 yet for HuK, but +2 is on its way through here for Snute. And if we look at these Lings and Hydralisks about to try and get a bit of a nice engagement. They've got to try and find a position where these sentries, the 7 of them, can't get too many good force fields out. The Mothership Core doesn't have anywhere near enough energy in order to throw down a Photon Overcharge, and for the moment at least, Snute just happy to bide his time, wait back and get out those swarm hosts and get into the style that he is incredibly comfortable within playing. So, Snute grabbing up a 4th hatchery now. He's in a very, very strong position in terms of his economy. He'd ideally want to cause a little bit of pressure in towards this 3rd base, take an engagement if he can find a nice one. Looks like he is going to be pushing on forward here. Of course, there's nothing really other than gateway units to deal with this Ling Hydra Force. The Hydralisks are able to become very, very good damage dealers here with these few roaches tanking up the damage at the front for them. All in all, HuK is going to be taking substantial losses here, and just with these roaches and hydras and a few zerglings alone, significant numbers of gateway units are getting taken down. The sentries that remain just staying back, but this 3rd nexus is running into a lot of problems. More hydralisks, more lings flooding on forward, a few more force fields trying to be used. There's the Photon Overcharge, but is it going to be enough? Snute getting a substantial amount of damage done here. If we look at the resources lost, a very, very big discrepancy. GG is called, and Snute is going to be able to take game number 1 of this best of 3. He defended against that 8-gate pressure very, very efficiently, and as a result of that, was able to take that first game with relative ease. So what's HuK going to do in game number 2? I believe we've got the vetoes done already, so we're going to be going on to King Sejong as the 2nd map. It's a 2-spawn position map, a lot smaller than Nimbus, so a pressure style play that HuK does quite like. He likes going for a lot of aggression. May work a little bit nicer than it did on Nimbus. So it's going to be interesting to see how this does come on through. But of course, Snute now 1 game up. He is going to be very, very happy about that. So it could all come down to this and being the elimination game. If Snute wins this, HuK will be eliminated from Intel Extreme Masters San Jose. And that's not something that he is going to be particularly keen on happening. But when we look at the groups, it's ridiculously hard to get through here. This is only stage 2, and obviously Snute and HuK, they were up against Rain and True, who are going to be battling it out in the winners game right now on the main stage. So when you look at that group, coming down in the elimination game isn't at all surprising. There's just such a high caliber of player battling it out here that it's exceptionally difficult to try and get through into stage 3. We are in game though, so if we jump on into this, we do of course now have these games coming on through, and spawning up to the top left-hand position of King Sejong Station, we have got the blue Protoss playing for Evil Geniuses. It is HuK. And his opponent down to the lower right, the red Zerg, representing Team Liquid, currently 1-0 up in this best of 3. It is none other than Snute. So, Snute, up 1 game so far. What is he going to be able to do here? What is he going to be able to achieve? If he wins here, he knocks HuK out of Intel Extreme Masters San Jose. It is as simple as that. So it's going to be pretty challenging for HuK, knowing that he's a game down, knowing that he's on match point, and knowing that his tournament life comes down to him winning in this game. It is a huge amount of pressure. It is a huge amount to get out of your head, and that's an advantage that Snute has been able to get from winning game number 1. In terms of opening, we do have HuK here now going for that gateway first, so he's playing things nice and safe, nice and steady. He went Nexus first on Nimbus, of course. Nimbus is a much better map to be going that. If we saw a Nexus first here, it would be a very, very brave move. But Snute, he's also opting for that spawning pool first, identical to what he did in the previous game. And likewise, this isn't a crazy decision to make by any means. It is just a very safe opening up against Protoss when you've got a player like HuK who isn't afraid to be aggressive early on. Getting that spawning pool down first just adds an extra layer of safety into Snute's play, which, let's face it, being safe is probably good for him, especially when he is a base up at this moment. Oh, sorry, a game up at this moment. You're going to be happy playing it cautiously, not losing to anything you don't want, because the pressure is all on HuK's side and what he wants to do. So this Overlord, flying on forward now, going to be getting a look to see whether there's a Nexus placed yet or when it is placed, so that is all good for him. Meanwhile, over at Snute's side, he's got that natural hatchery coming on down, and that's going to get scouted by HuK. He can't really do anything about it. He, of course, has the Zealot in production, could very well cancel that rather than letting it come out, unless he was looking to apply a little bit of pressure early on, which he certainly could do with a Zealot and a Stalk from the Mothership Core. We'll wait to see if it does get cancelled, and yeah, it looks like it is going to be, so that's all fine. It means the Nexus gets out a little bit quicker. HuK not really seeing anything to alarm him other than what he would normally want. Natural Nexus, of course, now on its way here for HuK. Snute should be very aware of these timings. He will have seen no Zealot come out. No, that's been cut in order to get down the natural base. And yeah, everything really going as would be expected at this stage of the game. And in direct response, Snute starts up his third base. That came down just before the 4-minute mark. And all the timings are hitting bang on exactly where you would expect them in the most standard of PvZs. Snute gets a little vision of one of the gases. He'll know the other one's up already because of the fact that the mothership core's out. So he knows the second gas is going to be coming on through. And with all of this, it's just further knowledge. And at this stage in the game, for both players, knowing what your opponent's doing is always very, very vital. Arguably more so for Snute in the early stages. He's going to want to try and deduce what HuK is going for, whether it's a robotics facility, whether it's a Stargate, what kind of tech that he's chosen, so he can respond appropriately to that. A couple more gateways coming down in the front here. It's unlikely to be an additional 3 gates going to 4 gate pressure just because of the second gas being down. Having said that, HuK is just waiting to throw down a 4th gate. So, again, just mixing things up a bit here. 4 gates with the 2 gases. What that basically means is that we're going to be seeing not just a lot of Zealots coming on through. Snute could be about to get a very good scout though. Comes on up, immediately sees that 4th gateway, knows about one of the gases, sees the second gas as well. So he knows he doesn't have to deal with a lot of Zealots. That's the big thing. But what he is going to have to deal with is more of a tech heavy push, more sentries, more stalkers involved. Doesn't see this pylon, which is frankly absurdly close to the 3rd base of Snute. And he doesn't have an Overlord in position to see it. He's actually got one a little bit further back where there is quite often a pylon placed. Maybe not expecting just how bold HuK was going to be there. So HuK, he's got these 4 gates finished. A couple of Zealots morphing on in. We've got a Spore Cooler coming on through. But that's not going to help up against these Zealots. Queen on its way across. Where are all the Zerglings? There's only 2 on the field. No more in production. And the lava count, while okay, isn't going to be too much help against this. What is Snute going to do? Time Warp thrown down the Zealots, surround one of those Queens, pick it off with ease. The Mothership Core does need to be a little bit careful. One more shot and it will get taken down. Good snipe there coming out from Snute, but more and more Zealots coming on through. This is leaving a lot of gas though for HuK, so I'm very interested to see what he's going to be doing with that. Taking a bit of an opportunistic play, not seeing really much to stop these Zealots. And he's just pumping it through. The Queen's going to be trying to do some work. This Spine Crawler going to die, unfortunately, before it's able to burrow up for the Zerg player. And Snute is taking quite a significant amount of damage. He's frantically trying to produce a lot more Zerglings coming on through. And, well, without these Zerglings, even with these Zerglings, he is going to find it quite difficult to defend against this when he's only got 2 Queens here. Trying to get more out, trying to maintain this 3rd base if at all possible. Doing an okay job of it at the moment, engaging, disengaging where possible to minimize how effective these Zealots can be. Good little bit of micro on this Queen actually trying to pull it back. Is he going to be able to save the second one? No, that gets taken out. The rest of these Zealots are getting surrounded, and it looks like for the moment, Snute is going to be able to fend off this aggression. He'll be able to take down this pylon. All in all, he lost 22 Lings for 14 Zealots. So when we look at that in terms of the resources lost, Snute didn't take a significant death. So, to be honest, with not taking very much damage there, Snute, keeping his 3rd base up, is now in a very nice spot. Because by going for this aggression, HuK limited the amount of tech he's got. He's still only on these 5 gateways. He's pumping out +1, so he can certainly follow it up with more pressure. But bearing in mind the pure volume of Speedlings out on the field, a great amount of map control is over on Snute's side. He's got the Roach Warren already finished, and he's adding in the +1 missile attack. So he's got all of the tools required to fend off this early pressure, and what he's predominantly going to be looking for now is whether or not this 3rd base gets taken. Immediately, as a couple of these sentries move on out, Snute's going to say, okay, yep, it looks like you are going to be going for that. A couple of good force fields do trap a handful of these Zerglings, but so many force fields being used here. Segmenting off a decent chunk of these Speedlings, but as they come across, they see the attempt at the 3rd base, or what could be an attempt. It hasn't actually been placed yet, and Snute's going to be aware of that. He is sending in an Overlord as well, just getting a good scout, seeing if there's anything sneaky coming down behind. But since he won't see that, we'll come on through, confirm that the 3rd Nexus has been taken, and that's just really to make sure that he's not getting caught off guard by anything too sneaky. So, back at Snute's side, he's got his lair nearly finished on up, so we should be seeing a Hydralisk den get placed shortly. May choose to go straight into the Swarm hosts, although it's not something that I am expecting at the moment. So, overcome these sentries, couple of Zealots as well. There isn't a pylon on the map yet, although there is... Is there a probe on the map, actually? No, there isn't. So, no way to reinforce with this army. The Mothership Core does have enough energy in order to recall out if required, but all in all, this push, it's pretty brave, because looking at the map, Snoot's taking a fourth. He's got a decent amount of roaches on the field with more on the way. He's got a good number of speedlings. And the tech just isn't really here. This is a Sentry Zealot push up against a lot of roaches. If Snoot can come in from multiple angles, as he's gearing up to do now, it could become quite problematic. A mass recall may very well be required. There it goes, but already a couple of sentries getting taken out. I think that was 3, and this is going to be the 4th one to go down, not getting caught in that recall. And that is 400 gas immediately reduced from HuK's army after already taking quite a bit of losses. Although gas is something that he didn't really lose with that initial aggression, because it was only Zealots and he banked up a lot behind it. So not a devastating loss there, but just another avenue that it wasn't going to go too well. If we look overall at the army supply, it's quite heavily in Snoot's favor now. And this roach speedling push coming across the map is looking very scary. It's predominantly roaches, 25 of them with burrow. And against only gateway units, what can HuK realistically do? He's just got to get more units onto the field. The upgrades are matched at 1-1 on both sides. The +1 armor is also coming on through. But well, this is just a lot of roaches against not that much in terms of gateway units. The force fields are going to be critical to making this work, but already some of these roaches hugging it up. They're moving forward, go straight in towards the main and the natural base. Just going to try and get a little bit of probe damage done. There is detection being granted by those cannons. That's how they're seen, but a couple of roaches just waiting around here. A few too many stalkers for them to push on through, waiting for HuK to hopefully get distracted by them and ignore it, but he's already got more stalkers there ready and waiting. So all in all, HuK able to hold for the moment. But behind this, Snoot, he's up to 4 bases, mining off of those 8 gases. He's got more and more roaches coming through, and importantly, he's got tunneling claws and also that spire on its way. So he's really bolstering the avenues of attack he can go for. And with the burrowed roaches, with the tunneling claws against basically gateway units, this is going to be a very, very tough hold for HuK. 10 more roaches in production. The drone count up already at 75 to 62. So that's actually one area that HuK is still in a relatively nice spot, being on those 3 bases. It's where he'd want to be. Otherwise, Immortal just coming on out. This is the first Immortal, the first bit of robotic tech actually coming down. Only otherwise gateway units, and this is really stressful for HuK. He's moving on out, but he's got to be so cautious. Coming forward with this observer, he wants to see just how much is there. Force back a little bit of creep spread, which he is going to be able to do. But if we just look at the volume of army here for Snoot, any engagement that HuK takes, he's got to be so ridiculously careful about. And now come these speedlings. They're coming from multiple different angles. Able to fade out a couple of these force field. A couple of sentries are going to get taken down. Blink is now done. Taking down the rock tower. That Zealot just surviving. He must have dodged a couple of boulders, but again, this is just trapping this army of HuK a little bit. Not in the best position for him. The roach is pushing on forward. There is one Immortal at the front, which is dishing out a decent amount of fire. These force fields are very, very nice. Tunneling claws, roaches, trying to back away, but with detection, HuK able to clean this up very nicely. He does, of course, have the 1-1 upgrades on these stalkers. That's up against the 1-0 upgrade for the roaches. The +1 melee attack was actually taken instead of the carapace. So what is HuK able to do now? He's actually up in supply for the first time this game, and his army supply is actually quite significantly higher if we look at that. 90, just being leveled out now by Snoot, but this is all with roaches. It's going to be a lot harder for Snoot to make this work. He is trying to counterattack with a couple of burrowed roaches into the natural base, so should actually go for the third where there isn't as much defense. He's just picking off a little bit of damage, but big engagement by the 4th base of Snoot. A huge swell of speedlings trying to engage here. They do have the +1 melee attack, which is going to help. Drones even being pulled here to soak up some of the fire. But Snoot needs more reinforcements. Across come the roaches. The 4th base, though, that's looking to be in a very, very tough position. Down goes that 4th base. The roaches still trying to find some avenue to attack, but Snoot taking a significant beating. Snoot's also got, though, 2,000 gas, and you may be wondering, why is he banking all that up? Well, he's got a spire, so the option is always there for him to go into some Mutalisks, and a few of them now coming on out, but he needs to clear out some of these stalker numbers, pushing in now with a lot of these roaches, getting very, very up close and personal, trying to deal with that Immortal first, picking up quite a few of the sentries, but in sheer numbers, HuK is able to get a good concave blink aggressively forward to pick up a few more roaches on this retreat, but it does buy a bit more time, picks off a few more of those Stalkers, allowing Snute to pump out additional Mutalisks. He's going for a big tech switch right now. HuK, he's attempting to take a 4th Nexus, which would put him on equal basis with Snute, who's having to remake his own 4th. And so it all is going to come down to whether these Mutalisks can do too much. If we look at the vision, the Spire hasn't actually yet been seen, although the Mutalisks now getting revealed as this very brave Stalker loses his life holding the watchtower down to the side. So with this scene, a lot of Stalkers going to get repositioned into a more defensive position. The Roaches also pushing on forward though, trying to find the best avenue to attack possible. In they all come now. A couple of nice force fields zone out a good portion of that Roach force. But now the Mutalisks and Roaches transitioning over towards the 4th base to get some guaranteed fire there. A few Burrowed Roaches escaping away from those Immortals, but here we go. Couple of gateways finishing on up there. The cannon was taken out, but the 4th Nexus able to survive, and the army of HuK coming on back in order to defend it. Not an ideal engagement there for Snute, and when we look at the resources lost, Snute staggeringly behind there. All in all, this is a bit of a rough spot now for Snute, because HuK's on 4th bases, and a 4-base Protoss is never something you want to deal with. But nor do you ever want to deal with 30 Mutalisks as a Protoss player. It's just such a huge amount of harassment damage that can come on through. An incredibly high amount of focus fire can be devastating. And they're just going to be so active out on the map. And on a map like King Sejong Station, they're going to be backing and forwarding, dragging these Stalkers with them, trying to always play catch up to get in a nice position to defend. Which is why I'm loving the fact that HuK does have this War Prism coming on down towards the main of Snute. He's got a Dark Shrine that he made as soon as he saw those Mutalisks, and this counter pressure could actually be very annoying because there isn't any detection here. The Spire could easily get sniped on down, and if there was a hive, that would also be a prime target. Overseer now morphing, immediately Snute kind of realizing, hang on a second, this doesn't seem too friendly. There is a couple of DTs also walking on through. In come the Mutalisks though, but they're racking up a fair few probe kills, and this is why so many Mutalisks are just frustrating to deal with, because they can come in and decimate a probe line without too much trouble. Unfortunately though, so can Dark Templar. They're having a bit of a time in the natural base, just tearing away at anything that they could find. The natural and the 4th do have detection, but at the 4th base, there's nothing there to defend with, and that's what's causing a bit of a problem. The War Prism also coming on back in to try and get a bit more damage done. Could just be a lot of Zealots warped in. Could be a couple of Dark Templar as well. But while this has now been stopped, I believe all of the Dark Templar have actually been killed. Yeah, they have. So they still got 13 drones worth of damage. This War Prism's not going to last too much longer as the Mutalisk flock comes on over. Still, 39 Mutalisks. This is mainly Mutalisks now in this force, and it's a scary force at that. The +2 air weapons isn't finished yet, but going for an engagement, the Stalkers are going to have to be very, very cautious with how they go through here. There's also a lot of Speedlings. This is a big fight coming on through. The Mutalisk count, though, plummeting down. There are Roaches backing up from behind this, but all in all, the Stalkers able to win on out, blinking forward to get a couple of additional shots off, and HuK now is able to deal a staggering amount of damage to the Mutalisk flock. It was at 40 plus, now down to half of that. And as a result, Snute is really waiting for those reinforcements to try and come on through, attempting to find some avenue to deal with this army of the Protoss player. But taking the engagement before the +2 flyer attack, did that hurt HuK just a bit, Snute a bit too much? HuK once again now coming in from the north of this 4th and is going to be able to easily pick that off and just retreat away. He doesn't need to do more than that at the moment because let's face it, he's got his own 4th base. He's now a base up as a Protoss player versus a Zerg. He's going to be ridiculously happy about that. But Snute, he doesn't want to let it stay that way. Flooding on over with a huge number of Speedlings. The Mutalisks are there as well. The Muta count back up to 26. But a whole host of DTs warping on in, just swiping through anything they can find. Unfortunately, not much else in the way to defend against these Mutalisks at the moment. A good few probes are taken down, but the 4th Nexus will be able to survive. With the Stalkers coming on back, more Mutalisks are getting taken on down. And this is just getting very annoying for Snute. He's trying to find avenues to just knock down HuK's economy, trying to find ways to level out this game. But as it stands, he invested heavily in the Mutalisks and he just didn't have enough in order to take down the Stalkers. trying to take these nice little fights where possible with smaller groups of the Stalkers, which will trade better, while counter-attacking with a handful of Lings and Roaches. But as we check around the map, HuK, he's posturing to just get very aggressive here, knowing that a head-on fight will favor him up against this high Mutalisk count. And while Snute is looking to counterattack, there's cannons here, there's Stalkers here, and they're just going to waylay this army, buy as much time as possible. The Photon overcharge at the natural base, more cannons there. GG is called, and HuK levels out this series, taking it to 1-1. One game, the ace game, is going to decide this series. Who is eliminated from Intel Extreme Masters San Jose, and who moves on into the decider game up against one of the winners bracket losers. Short break now while we set up the third and final game in this series. Make sure you stay tuned, and if you want to join in the conversation, hashtag IEM on Twitter. Catch you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Intel Extreme Masters, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mattles, and we are going into the ace game now of this best of 3. It is the elimination match of Stage 2, and that means that the loser of this map will be eliminated from Intel Extreme Masters San Jose. Spawning in the left-hand position of Catalina, we have got the blue Protoss. Coming back from losing that first game to level out this series, we have HuK. And to the north, the Red Zerg, representing Team Liquid, none other than Snute. So, Snute versus HuK. It all comes down to this. The group was ridiculously tough. It was Rain, True, Snute, and HuK here. Rain was able to 2-0 HuK in a PvP, and True was able to 2-0 Snute in a ZVZ. That's how these two ended up in the elimination game. The deciding game between Rain and True is going to be on the main stream. That's going to be starting on the hour. And of course, the winner of this will be facing the loser of Rain versus True in order to decide who gets that final spot into Stage 3. And Stage 3 is where you want to be. It's the final 16. It's where things start getting very, very tough. Actually, no, it's the final 8. I take that back. So yeah, final 8. So difficult. We know, of course, the other game is going to be coming on this stream, as the first 2 games in the groups have already been played. Up after this series, we're going to be jumping into First versus Jaedong, another PvZ. Absolutely sensational caliber of player here in Stage 2 at Intel Extreme Masters. Now, in terms of openings on Catalina in this game, HuK, he's decided to go for the Nexus first. That's a spawning pool and a hatch coming out here for Snute. So he's playing it just the same as he has in every other game. HuK, on the other hand, reverting back to how he opened on Nimbus, game number 1. Catalina is a smaller map. He's probably feeling quite confident due to the narrower ramp in order to get a wall off there, as the pylon has finished on up. But of course, going for the double gases behind this as well, so he's going to be going relatively tech heavy. I'm excited to see how he's going to play this. Of course, Catalina has got just a ridiculous amount of cliff space around here. A beautiful little beach down by the side of every main base. It's some prime real estate if you wanted to build a house on the edge of it, but it's not too good for Snute in terms of defending against Stargate pressure if that were to come through. And it's something that we know HuK is very confident in using. He did do it on Nimbus and actually got quite a good effect out of it, even though Snute did scout it relatively early on. So all in all, This is going to be an interesting game to see how things get thrown out, especially with Snute taking that third base nice and quickly. He's responding to what he scouted with his Overlord, that Nexus first build, and he's just saying, yeah, I can keep up with this economy, I can keep up with this economic play, my macro's good, let's see how you like it in the mid-game. And as we saw in game number 1, when a similar build order was taken by both players, Snute was quite keen to try and get in towards that swarm host play, and it's something that Snute was really one of the pioneers of. He is also probably one of the best at that style of play, and it's a style of play that many Protoss players absolutely resent playing against, and HuK is no exception. He cannot stand it, he doesn't like dealing with it, but he's had quite a bit of experience, obviously playing a lot of games up against Aces, Scarlet in the WCS America seasons, and just being in the same region as her. Another big advocate of going for that swarm host play. So it'll be interesting to see if we do get to that stage how HuK deals with it, but as of yet we haven't seen really much in the way of swarm host. Game number 1 did have them coming out, but hey, Snute was able to win that game before that point after a good deflection of pressure. And talking of deflection of pressure, it's actually something that Snute has done a fantastic job of in both game number 1 and 2. Not really taking much damage where perhaps others would have taken significantly more, although this game, things really ramping up for aggression. 5 gate pressure off of 2 bases going to be coming in here from HuK. Snute, for the moment at least, hasn't seen it. This Overlord, perilously close to coming over to scout those gateways. If it just wanders back there and takes a peek what's been made, he would see all. But for the moment, just waiting back, doesn't want to take a look as of yet. Just taking a quick look at what these Zealots and Stalkers are going to be doing. Just trying to poke and prod where possible, but quite a few Lings already coming out, and I think Snute smells something a bit off. He's getting a decent number of Zerglings out, going to be going up to 26. Speed's also nearly finished. Definitely keeping an eye on that probe. Doesn't want to allow any pylons to go down, and actually if Snute is able to deflect that probe and prevent a pylon from being placed, he's going to buy himself ample amounts of time in order to defend against any kind of pressure that comes on through. 16 more Lings are on the way, so he knows something's up. Has he actually come in yet with that Overlord to get a scout? Not yet. It was actually picked off, but he's probably going to be sitting there wondering, why did a sentry come and try and kill that? Another gate at the front, that takes us up to now 6 gateways. The Forge also on its way through, but this is just a good swell of speedlings. Snute just happily applying pressure, actually managing to get a couple of those Lings through. That's going to deal quite a bit of damage to these sentries. They're frantically trying to keep themselves up. One goes down, a second one could get picked off, does get picked off. That's annoying. More sentries getting warped in. This reveals a bit of the gateway count. Another couple of Lings trying to make their way forward. And this is expending a lot of energy on those sentries in order to stop these speedlings from getting in and winning Snute the game right then and right there. Behind this Snute, he's adding in the Evo Chamber, adding in the Lair, playing for a very similar build order to what we saw in the previous game. And well, if Snute is able to keep up this amount of pressure, it's going to be very frustrating for HuK to deal with this. So, HuK, he has taken a third base pretty much every game. He did in game 1 and 2, and it looks to be going for a similar build this time. Drops down that third base, but obviously with a lot of the sentry energy already depleted, Snute does have an avenue to try and get a little bit more aggressive against this. Looking around, we've got, of course, the 5th and 6th extractor being taken now for Snute. He actually took 4 simultaneously, so really ramping up his gas. Looking to complete up his lair shortly as well, and that's where we can start seeing things like the Hydralisk then get taken, going into a Ling Hydra style, which would be very strong when you've only seen gateway units out on the field at the moment. Not any sign of, say, a robotics facility where there could be Colossus, which would cause that Ling Hydra grouping a little bit more trouble. So, the Zealots and the Stalkers still moving on forward, still looking to going for a bit more fun. We've got a handful of sentries and Zealots trying to get a bit more damage in. Quick little wrap around here. The sentries do get some good force fields out, but there's a lot of speedlings, 30 of them in total. They are backing away now. And well, still looking to see where these sentries and zealots can get some more damage done. Still checking about, making sure there's not too much more in terms of issue coming on through. Just waiting back. Pylon is coming on down. How many gates are behind this? There's 7 gates. The 7th one's just warping into a warp gate now. The first few Hydralisks are about to come out on the field, but that was some good force fields actually from HuK, segregating out a decent group of these speedlings. Still checking on through. Still trying to make sure that not too much else can be done. A couple of time warps coming on through. Good little snipe on the mothership core. It's going to prevent a retreat. But there's additional speedlings trying to come in from the back, but there's so many zealots there. They're struggling. +1 ground weapons is actually done for those zealots as well, so they'll be two-shotting the lings since they don't have any of the carapace upgrades. Still checking what else can be done here. Snute just repeatedly coming back, trying to see where this army's moving. And, well, as we keep on going, HuK just forwarding in. He's behind this, getting his robotics bay. Going to be going up into Colossus Tech, but in comes the engagement. The Hydralisks get into a fairly decent position, trying to really ramp up the damage output. The Speedling's not really there in order to buffer damage for them, so they are getting focused quite efficiently. Just the number of Hydralisks causing a slight problem for HuK. The Zealots at the front that were eating up a lot of that damage do start to fall, but the Hydralisks are just not numerous enough in order to stop this. Still checking around, waiting to see where these guys can go. HuK just happy to pull back though. He knows he's done a good bit of damage. He knows that his robotics bay is done, so he can start up the Colossus production. And I'd imagine that Snute just going to be aiming to go up into some Viper tech. He does, of course, have his Hive on its way down. He's got his Rotron too. Decent number of Zerglings, decent number of Hydras as well. And they're just fending off this gateway only pressure for now. And there we have it, the Enduring Locust upgrade coming on through. Remember, this is a really tough game for both of these two because it's the best of 3. And being the third game of the elimination game in Group A, whoever loses this is eliminated from Intel Extreme Masters. It is a huge amount of pressure. Both of these two are going to be wanting to at least get into that decider game. If not, try and get up into the Stage 3 main event. So it's tough. It is going to be rough for both of them, and Snute is arguably getting more into his comfort position now with these 5 Swarm Hosts coming out. As I said right at the start, Swarm Host play is something that Snute absolutely adores. It's something that he is incredibly efficient with. And it's something that so many Protoss players absolutely despise having to do. Checking around, still not got too much else in terms of HuK. He's just busy pumping out Colossus, busy trying to get a decent army to deal with Swarm Hosts. He's got 1 Colossus already. Note also there was a little goop up there of the Forge, lowering or slowing down the +1 ground armor. And this is giving Stu a chance to catch up. He's got the +2 missile attack upgrade now finished. That's really gonna help those Swarm Hosts dish out a fair bit of damage, and there's a good number of them already coming out into the field. Gonna be going up to 11 at this early stage. Needs to fire him up quickly though, because HuK is arguably going to be trying to go and get a bit of damage down before the Swarm Host count gets too substantial to really get aggressive into. Is there any Warp Prism? No, but there are a couple of pylons coming up to the north there, which could allow for a few Zeta run-ins towards the 4th base of Snute. But all in all, very cautious play coming through here from HuK, just clearing out some of these creep tumors early. Meanwhile, up towards the 4th, we do have some Lings and Hydras waiting on down there. Meanwhile, the Swarm Host just starting the endless siege, starting the move down and picking apart some of these Locusts. Still doing nicely. Getting a good amount of the ground area free using these Locusts, while also trying to apply a little bit of counter pressure. There was a mass recall there, allowing these units to get back to defend the 3rd base. But importantly for HuK, he is now taking his own 4th. So he's staying at level bases with that of Snute. And as a result, it is going to be a little bit irritating for Snute, because on equal bases with the Protoss, you've got to be trading very nicely, which is something that Snute isn't going to have any trouble with, thanks to having already 17 Swarm Hosts down and these Vipers. But both players are going to be looking to bunker on down, get themselves into a good position, and the challenge ultimately for Snute with this Swarm Host style play is taking a 5th, because if he takes a 5th down here, he's suddenly getting very spread out, and that's going to allow Blinkstalkers to come on through, start picking away, harassment to get very effective, add in Warp Prisms, as we're seeing here from HuK harassing into the main. It's just multiple angles that can quite easily be assaulted, and Swarm Hosts, being relatively immobile, are going to struggle to defend all of those locations simultaneously. So it's more of a long-term problem for Snute. For the moment, if he keeps getting some beautiful abducts like that on the Colossi into the Locust, he's not going to have to worry about it. But it's still just a frustration and a long-term problem. Still checking about, waiting to see where else these guys can go for. Just still checking, making sure that No one's taking too much damage. Snute and HuK actually arguably very, very equal in terms of the resources lost. Although I'd imagine that's going to start changing just because there's swarm hosts out. And every time that there is, you're going to be seeing very cost-efficient Zerg unless they're making some pretty substantial errors. Still trying to keep a good look where these two could be going. Ultimately, HuK not really in a rush to engage. He wants to get more Colossi out. He's got the double Robotics Bay now, starting up the double Colossus production. Going to really allow him to ramp that up quickly. But he's also being pretty damn active with these Stalkers, moving about, trying to find any units that he catches off guard. We'll find 2 Swarm Hosts, 3 good little pickoffs, and it may not seem like devastating amounts of damage, but when you've simultaneously got drops coming through, buying attention of Snute, and still keeping these Blink Stalkers active without losing any of them, any little bits of damage are going to be very, very happy for him. Still looking at other areas of the map and where these guys are going for, and to be honest, HuK is really in the driver's seat at the moment. He can just sit back and wait, keep harassing these bases, keep preventing a 5th base if Snute wants to take one, while knowing that he's still on equal bases with his opponent. So he can play the defensive game. He can wait this out. It's really up to Snute in a lot of ways to start this slow edge forward, and we're really seeing him do that, spreading the creep, moving the static defense, moving the swarm hosts, and edging closer and closer towards this third. The Locusts already able to make it on in, and once these Locusts start getting up the distance, it starts getting a lot more problematic to try and stop them for HuK. HuK now also just working away wherever possible on any units that he can find. Ideally doesn't want to be engaging the Locusts if he can avoid it, because that's an efficient trade for him, but he also cannot afford to just sit back here and let his third get destroyed. He is at 157 supply. His army supply quite a lot lower than that of Snute's, but he's got a very high cost army. He's got 7 Colossus out on the map at the moment, and that's going to really help him as he positions himself around towards his third. Note all of the swarm hosts, or the vast majority of them, all bar 3, a little bit out of position to defend this location, and that is what HuK is banking on. He wants to come on through. He wants to try and get some very nice trades here. Just edging on back, trying to play this safely. Doesn't want to take a fight that wouldn't be advantageous for him. Simultaneously, we do have a couple of Zealots warping in, preventing a 5th base attempt. Zealots warping in into the main base, harassing even further, just trying to pull Snute in every possible angle. And when we remember that there's only Swarm Hosts pretty much and a few Hydralisks on the map, it's very difficult for Snute to be in all of these places at once. He's gonna lose that Spire. That is actually quite a big loss to him. It prevents any Mutalisk switch. He's gonna be losing the Roach Run and Spawning Pool. Not the biggest loss when he's going for the Swarm Host style, but he's also taking significant damage here at his 4th. In come a lot of these Stalkers now. In come these Colossi, taking down the static defense. Good couple of Abducts will grab a lot of those Colossus. Able to pick them all off. Able to grab them even further back now. Having to use a Blinding Cloud just to make sure that the Viper stays alive as the Stalkers blink underneath it. But that was a good trade for Snute. Able to deal a fair amount of damage, picking off a fair few of those Colossi as well. I believe 2, if not 3 of them were taken down there, so that's a good pick off. But right on cue, more Zealots coming on in towards the main. Luckily for Snute though, he does still have the Hydralisks here, so he's going to be applying a bit more damage, taking out that Warp Prism. Still checking around, still trying to make sure what else can be done here. Few DTs actually being very irritating, and with no detection of this natural base, Snute actually going to be taking a fair bit of damage here. Doesn't even have any Overseers full stop. No, 3 morphing. There's 1 at the 4th. But already these Dark Templar dealing a significant amount of damage. Both of these Spires being focused simultaneously. One will get taken down. The other one able to survive as these Overseers and Mutalisks picking them apart nicely. But still, 1 Spire able to survive, but it is incredibly low in terms of overall production. Is going to be staggering on terms of the air upgrades if he wants to be switching there. Behind us, we've got a lot more Archons coming through now, and HuK is rapidly approaching a devastatingly strong late game composition. But there's still a thorn in his side, or 22 of them. Those Swarm Hosts never stopping the siege forward, always running on through, and keeping Snute very cost efficient. While neither player is able to establish a 5th yet, Snute is about to up to this north spot, and thanks to these Swarm Hosts sending wave upon wave of units, maybe Snute is able to buy himself some time, but The trouble is, this army's just so vast now. If it just comes and checks down, though, he does actually know it's a base trying to be taken, so we should see him just move down if he sees all of these locusts, unless he wants to go for it, which he could very well try to. A couple of blinding clouds being used. That's scooping up quite a few of those Archons from being able to engage. The Swarm host backing away, but HuK going for this now. Wants to take the trade where possible. There aren't any abducts because there are all those blinding clouds coming down at the moment. Still, a few more shots coming on through these Spore Crawlers are easily killed. The fourth base going to get knocked out as well. HuK is pushing on forward. Snute having to reposition his Swarm host. He's trying to take a fifth. He's counter-attacking with some Mutalisks and doing a fair bit of damage there. Should be able to take out this fourth base eventually, but that's only if HuK doesn't decide to come back to try and defend. The fifth is still alive for Snute at the top. He's got a sixth down to the bottom right and retaking his fourth, building a lot of static defense there. But in the center, a few Hydralisks are going to get caught, going to get taken on down. And that is very, very frustrating. Losing those Hydralisks isn't the same as losing the Locusts. It's going to be costing Snute resources. And while his bank is alright, it's by no means this infinite supply of resources that he might like it to be. Likewise, though, HuK is starting to get quite limited on his own resources. So he needs to do something big here. He's got to be very careful not to get his army trapped, though. 2, 3 Great Abducts. 3 Colossi get taken down. That only leaves 2 more. A couple of Blinding Clouds going to stop some of these Stalkers from getting into a good position, but they're marching straight up into the main base. They want to get some more damage down where possible, picking off a couple of those Swarm hosts as they burrow. And that's always going to be some good shots. More Locusts coming on up, trying to get a few more shots off, but all in all. And, well, as we check about, as we try and find some more ways for these two to go through, a couple of the Stalkers are going to be taking a bit of fire, but blinking on down into a whole wall of spines and also queens. They're going to be taking a decent hit, and Snute seems to have been able to take a good advantage now, up quite substantially in supply, and HuK without the money in order to resupply. Losing those Colossi really was a big problem for him, and while he may have prevented Snute from coming out and pushing forward, what's left to actually engage into these 28 Swarm hosts now? A couple of Mutalisks trying to go up against the Stalkers. They need to be careful. There's more reinforcements coming on through, but it's up to the Swarm hosts. They can get very aggressive now just because there aren't any Colossi. There's only 2 just about to pop out, and once they're gone, well, actually HuK doesn't have enough income to fund many more in production afterwards. So that's a problem for HuK. And if Snute identifies how small the Colossus count is, with 22 Swarm hosts, he can just start pushing forward. HuK slowly trying to resupply, slowly trying to get some wins wherever possible, gets the odd Swarm host here and there, blinks away, and it's that kind of cost efficiency that he needs to be doing tenfold if he is going to be able to claw his way back into this game. Because right now, Snute is just sitting pretty. Any money he gets in is just being banked up. He's got a decent Swarm host count. The Locusts, every time they trade, it's going to be very nice. The odd Stalker here and there with the Hydralisks chasing on down. It's a little bit of damage, and I think Snute identifying that his opponent really lacking in any kind of area of effect damage in those Colossi is just aggressively moving those Swarm hosts forward, ready to besiege this third base. And there's not much HuK can do about it, because simultaneously the Hydralisks and the Mutalisks are coming in towards the fourth. They're going to be pressuring there. And this is pulling HuK apart with what is already quite a small force to try and defend all of this. He does have 4 Colossi. But 4 Colossi, not going to really be able to deal with this volume of Swarm hosts. The 2 Vipers going to start becoming critical for Snute. If he gets 1 or 2 good abducts down onto those Colossus and picks them off, suddenly there just isn't a way to deal with the volume of Locusts that are going to be pushing on forward. I would suspect that this third base isn't going to last much longer as a big wave of Locusts coming on through. That should get focused down pretty quickly. A lot of the probes being killed first, though. Just maximizing the damage, since the Nexus is a pretty easy target, to be honest. Just surviving their 15 HP, but the next wave of Locusts is going to have something to say about that. HuK battling. Remember, his tournament life stands in the balance here. If he has to GG out, Snute will go into the decider game, and HuK will be eliminated from Intel Extreme Masters San Jose. Snute pushing on in, getting a bit of contamination down onto both of those robotic facilities, preventing further Colossus being produced, even though it was only observers. But actually, the observers are quite important. With them going down, HuK actually has no way to see those Swarm hosts while they're burrowed, so he can't even engage them. That means that they can just sit here completely invulnerable, or pretty much invulnerable, to anything from HuK. And his 4th base is now going to start getting sieged up. The Locusts moving on forward. HuK trying to take these bases to the south, but he's going to take such a significant amount of damage here. Down goes that Nexus, and with it, a lot of problems come. There are counterattacks coming on through by these Zealots. They should be able to grab the Hydralisks then, and they get the natural base. But with the Mutalisks here, they're not going to last too much longer. Potentially, they could get the Hive, but I don't think they're going to be able to with this many Mutalisks. And all in all, with this volume of Locusts pushing on through, it's going to start getting very, very hard. Out come the Locusts popping again. One Swarm Host will die, but some good reactionary fungal blinding clouds coming on through is going to make sure that not too many of the Swarm Hosts die there. Meanwhile, the main base of HuK is just getting besieged. That Robotics Bay going to be a nice little target, although without a Robotics facility, there aren't going to be any more Colossus getting produced. Down to the south, it has now been scouted that this base is here. The Blinkstalk is getting picked off on their attempt to retreat. Snute has got the north base as well, but he's still max. HuK trying to find a way through, and why wouldn't he? He is having to fight through here, because if he GG's out, as I said, he's eliminated from Intel Extreme Masters San Jose, and that is not something that he's going to want to do until there is no other option available to him. His standing army is still relatively scary. There's 5 Colossus there, but it's up to the Swarm Hosts. Are they going to have enough damage? The Viper just running on through. He's a very brave Viper, somehow surviving for the moment at least. I'm surprised the Stalkers haven't taken a bit of a look at him, but he does now go down. The Locust still pushing on forward, getting a couple of these Colossi, and that's the problem. The Mutalisks also focusing them down. If the Colossus fall, there just isn't any way to replace them, and with now only 3 Colossus up against 14 Swarm Hosts, it gets so hard to deal with those Locusts. Every single wave of them. They're 3-3 Locusts up against 3 1 ground upgrades for HuK, and Snute is looking to be in a nigh unstoppable position here. This top base just granting him additional income. He's adding in more Mutalisks, knowing that the Stalker count is relatively low. It's now 22 Mutas up against 17 Stalkers. They're looking to go and harass down to this south base. They should pretty easily be able to pick up a few pylons here and there. Should be able to deal a bit of damage anywhere that you can find. They've got the +3 attack as well, so these are actually dishing out a fair amount of damage every time they come in and set a volley off. HuK is now down by 81 supply at this stage, and if we look at that, it's not all in the workers, it's actually more in the army, because HuK up 41 to 32 workers at this stage, but it doesn't matter. Snute, he's got the bases, he's got the tech, and he is limiting the tech choices of HuK. HuK, he can't make any more Colossus. He's got Gateway tech, sure, and he can make High Templar still, but that's pretty much it. And those High Templar don't even have Storm. And with the Mutalisk coming forward now, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that tech get taken down. HuK frantically trying to get these Blinkstalkers back. How many does he even have at this stage? 22 Blinkstalkers up against 33 Mutalisks with the +3 attack. A lot of the production facilities of HuK now getting taken out, and this is going to really hurt his ability to resupply, beyond that even of not having enough money to do so. Snute getting into a very, very strong position. It's 37 minutes in this game, and I see very few options for HuK at this moment. He is frantically trying to rebuild some infrastructure down to the south, but with it, what more can he do? He's still getting a decent couple of pot shots off here, taking down all of the remaining tech, and with this, HuK is now down just to the south, trying to re-establish some gateways. He currently doesn't have any production facilities at all, and this is all buying Snute more time. He should start looking to reposition these Swarm Hosts, and he is going to start doing that, knowing that his opponent is trapped down to the south position. And with the Mutalisk flock, he does have decent numbers, but even 38 Mutalisks do need to be relatively cautious up against these Blinkstalkers. But with the Swarm Hosts and the Locusts edging on forward ever closer to these south positions, the last vestige of hope for the Evil Genius's player, Snute is just slowly constricting on his opponent, not in any rush to kill him, just happy to pick him apart and take a controlled win. And it must be so tough for a player in HuK's position right now when you know that your opponent has pretty much the whole map and you're clinging on, but knowing it's what you need to do if you want any chance of taking this game, if you want any chance of staying in this tournament, it's what you got to do. 3 Colossus trying to hold off wave upon wave of these Locusts. The Swarm Hosts slowly creeping closer. There's 13 of them still remaining. But these top bases, they're giving a decent amount of income for Snute. He's got a fair few Hydralisks as well, creeping closer as well. And with the Mutas, with the Swarm Hosts, and the Hydralisks, it's such a high amount of damage potential. In they go now, these Locusts, just wave upon wave. The Mutalisks toying with the idea of going in. Blink forward is a big move. A couple of those Stalkers getting taken out, and this is going to be at the engagement. HuK, is he going to be able to do anything? It looks like no, he won't. An overwhelming force by Snute takes down those Colossi, focusing down the Stalkers with the Mutalisks. And with that, HuK's supply plummets. GG is called, and Snute is able to defeat HuK 2-1 in the elimination game. Unfortunately for HuK, knocking him out of Intel Extreme Masters San Jose, and it puts Snute through into the decider game versus either True or Rain, who are currently battling it out in that winner's match. Congratulations to Snute there, a very close series, 2-1, and a very long final game. Next, we're going to have on this channel Jaedong versus First. That's going to be the elimination game from Group B. They were in a group with Polt and Revival. Revival was able to beat First 2-1, and Polt was able to 2-0 Jaedong in the first round of that Group B. That'll be coming up next. Quick break though. Make sure you stay tuned, and if you've got anything to add to the discussion, hashtag IEM on Twitter. I'll see you in a couple of minutes with Jaedong versus First.